So in this discussion video, we're going to talk about something which I think is quite interesting, maybe a bit depressing. It's to do with burnout and motivation and stuff, and actually getting yourself to do the things that you want to do creatively. Now, a while ago, CG Matter put out a video. Let me just share my screen. Oh god, I'm all the way off the screen now. Ah, hello. It was the Blender Burnout, how can you fix it? Now, it was a pretty nice video, just basically saying that the best thing you can do is take a break from your work, because if you're trying to come up with ideas all the time, if you force it, it's probably going to make things worse. If you take a step away and give yourself time, you're eventually just going to inspire yourself into a new direction, a new idea, just as you live your life. So I'm not going to disagree with this, because I hate it. Like whenever I do a discussion video and someone says, I disagree, it's X, Y, or Z. It's just like another point that you totally agree with, but just because you didn't say it, people think that you don't believe that. So I'm not going to say I disagree with this video. There's just a tangential thing I want to add to that, which is that I have known so many people in my life who I don't really speak to anymore for like a variety of other reasons. It's just like kind of incompatible, and we'll get on to speaking about that a bit more because it resonates with a conversation I had with another creator not that long ago, where certain personalities don't really click with like creative personalities. Anyway, I've known a fair number of people in my life who like stepping back and taking a break will not work. Like that will never help to resolve the problem. The problem is for like this kind of motivation problem, this burnout problem, that's another thing as well. Like the terms, there's a lot of overlap. The problem is not like having the ideas or being motivated or anything like that. It's to do with unresolved issues, which come in a variety of forms. So for example, I knew someone who, when they were younger, used to make a lot of music and they really enjoyed it. As they got older, they could not start themselves to make any new music. Like they had all the stuff there, they had all the equipment there, they had everything set up, but for some reason or another, they couldn't do it. They had ideas, they had a hell of a lot of inspiration because they loved listening to music all the time. They really wanted to make it. They had all the time in the world, like they'd stepped away from it, but the barrier was there and they didn't exactly know why. And I think that the same feeling is there for a lot of people. Like sometimes you have an absolute strong ambition to do something. You really want to do it, but you just don't have, for lack of a better term, the confidence to step over that barrier and actually start it. And a lot of people are confused because they don't have the self-reflection potential to see why. But I think a lot of it boils down to typically like post-school era, worried about what people will think, even if there's no one to worry about, if that makes sense. Like I've known so many people like this, where you come out of school, you have an idea or an ambition to try something, but you don't, and you stick to just like a strict path, and you want to express yourself. But I guess for some people, they've had like this weird, like battered, what term should be used? Like, it's not Pavlovian, is it? I guess, or something, where like a dog has been repeatedly hit. No, it's not Pavlovian. There was something about an elephant that if you chain it up for so long, for so many years, and then you remove the chains, it will still behave like it's been chained up, if that makes sense. I feel like there's a lot of people who had like this kind of creative ambition internally, but they were never encouraged to express it or try different things. So when it gets to a point later on in life, they don't feel like they're allowed to, or they don't feel like they've had the validation to, or even if they try, they need some encouragement to say, okay, that's worthwhile, but because they don't get any, they don't carry on. And then there's like a whole other side of it, like subconscious self-bullying, where if you have like the narrative of people that you think would make fun of you running through your head. I had that for years, where it's like, okay, well, these people would probably think this is stupid, so why should I carry on doing it, etc., etc. So what I'm basically saying is there's a whole host of possible reasons that people don't want to start something, even if they have everything else in place. And sometimes that's idea related as well, where they just won't let themselves kind of inspire into new ideas, or they just kind of like suppress it and shut it down whenever something new comes along, like a really cool idea. They're just like, oh, no, whatever, it doesn't really matter. And it might sound strange, but there are quite a lot of people like that. And I feel like situations like that require a hell of a lot more self-reflection, maybe some therapy for people to get over. And the thing is, people like looking for like quick one-shot solutions. Oh, the reason I can't start doing this is because of X or Y or Z. Reality is not like that. And your individual case is going to be wildly different from someone else when you get down to like the raw details of what's caused it. But this kind of comes on to like my number one rule for life, which is all things within reason. And that can be adapted into like several different other ideas. For example, nothing in life is truly ever black or white. So there are several ways to think about that. So first of all, this advice, or the advice given like on CG Matter's video, is not going to apply to anyone. any particular piece of advice anyone can give anyone else is not going to apply to the entire population. Okay, so that's like not thinking in black and white terms. That's also all things within reason. So within reason, this advice should help people, but also within reason, it's not going to help everyone. But also for that black and white rule, you need to consider that if you're looking for a solution, that's probably not the entire story. Like if you feel like something resonates with you, if an idea, if a solution resonates with you, just, be open to the idea that it might be something more complex. And the same could be said for many other fields of life, especially say like the medical field. Like if you have a complex medical problem, it'll be like really reassuring to look up, oh, it's something that's not super serious, but what if it is something serious? You can't just latch on to that one thing. You've got to be a bit more present about the possibilities. But, on the flip side of that, you don't want to give yourself too much emotional damage. But I feel like the same definitely applies to these kind of mental creative aspects, like these difficulties that people face when they're getting themselves to start projects. So I guess just to lean into that point a bit more, one of the reasons why you may have trouble starting projects, one of the reasons why, and this may only apply to like one person watching this, like this may not apply to most people, but one of the reasons why you have trouble starting your own personal projects, and maybe you've only done like tutorials and other stuff, and you want to start that project, but you just can't, something is there, there's a barrier there. Why do you think that is? What is actually stopping you from starting that file, starting that project, and like trying to follow through at least a little bit with it? Doesn't mean you have to complete the project. I don't finish most projects, most of my stuff's experimental, but just like at least starting it. Because one thing, again, going back, because I've had a fair amount of experience with these people, is that they will delude themselves into believing that they have the answer to the reason why they don't start stuff. And the number one excuse which comes up as like the cover up is, oh, I don't have enough time. Oh, I don't feel like I'm in the right mood. Okay, both of those are complete rubbish. They have enough time and they will never be in the right mood. These are the endless excuses, right? These are the excuses that everyone uses to cover up an actual reason why. And I guess this kind of comes onto the point that like the human mind is so good at convincing itself of a lie. Maybe some people will feel called out for that, and maybe you should feel called out for that. But I think it's just something to watch out for. Like if you're stuck there and there's something you want to do, but you tell yourself, oh, it's not the right time, I'm not in the right mood, etc., then you're falling into the trap right there. And maybe it's genuinely you don't have enough time. But like chances are it's probably a bit of a cover up, because you don't really need much time to start a project. You could just need like 2 minutes, 2 minutes, play something down, twist something in a weird way, etc., and come back to it and do things sequentially. So I think, if you're listening to this, try and pay attention to that. Like if you're coming up with excuses in your mind, try and catch them as they're just emerging from your subconscious, right, into your conscious. But you go, oh, I don't have enough. No, stop. Don't say that. Just let's try and divert from that mental habit, break out of that line of thought, break out of that loop, and try and make a change. So near the beginning of this video, I alluded to the fact that I spoke to another creator somewhat recently about this similar topic, and how we got onto talking about people that have this kind of antagonistic, the universe is against me mentality, otherwise known as the external locus of control, where you believe that everything is decided for you by the universe. Now that's a term which I bring up a lot on this channel and on Blenderness, because it's a very significant part of philosophy. Understanding where control in your life comes from. Is it internal or is it external? And I feel like the good point is to have a balance like in the middle. You understand that there are so many variables and factors in the universe that you don't have control over, and yet you do have control over them via the butterfly effect. And just, I think it's good to understand your willpower and how you can have an influence and a change over your life. But there are people out there who, again, mostly come out of school and education, who really feel like everything has been decided for them, and therefore they are completely against trying new things. They are not very open to experience, just generally, from like a personality measurement. And in extreme cases, they are spiteful towards people who do try things and do become successful. I call that the crab pot. I've spoken to a bunch of other creators about that as well. And the interesting thing is we all know people like that, which is kind of a depressing point. So the crab pot, just to explain that, is the idea, and I don't know if this is true, but like if there's a pot of crabs boiling, if one tries to escape, others will pull it back down. Now, I don't know if that actually happens, or even if it does, it might just be the crabs lower down trying to find a support to climb out as well. It might not be malicious. But do you understand the point? It's like when someone's doing well, spite, maybe them looking at the universe saying, why have you given success to them and not to me? I deserve it. I've been sitting here, I've wanted it for longer. Why isn't it me? And then pulling the person back down. If I can't have it, then you can't have it. That's the mentality. And I'm sure that you may know some people like that as well. So speaking to this creator, which I shall not name, but maybe you could take an educated guess if you've been following around all of my like social posts and stuff. They said that when they've grown up and when they started doing this Blender stuff as well and like this YouTube stuff, they were surrounded by similar kinds of people. And so was I, like a few years ago. The thing is, it's extremely draining and it completely demotivates you. And it puts this seed in your head that kind of makes you question whether anything you're doing is worthwhile. Because I used to get, lots of nice comments back then as well, like on the YouTube, but none of them meant anything because I'm sitting in a room like all day, every day with people that don't try stuff, that complain about the universe all the time, and just have an excuse for absolutely everything. And then even if you do something exciting that people like, they just show no interest unless you kind of force a conversation about it. And then they'll sit there like one day and just go, oh, I really want to try this sometime. And you're like, well, do it then. And they're like, oh, no, like X excuse, Y excuse, etc. Like, it's so draining to be around those kinds of personalities all day, every day, for months, for years, especially when you're trying to break out and do something like exciting, something new, something to gain an audience, something to help people, like trying experimental things and new ground, etc. In the case of the creator I spoke to, they said they had to end up moving out. They used to be living with these people and they said one day they didn't tell them, they just went and they rented out somewhere else and they just left. For my case, I did something kind of similar. It wasn't really with that intention. I was going through some medical struggles, as I usually do. I've got like a collection of strange and odd medical issues which kind of flare up every now and again. And at one point it became so stressful and just like almost impossible to deal with mentally that I kind of said to this group of people, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to leave here for now. I think things were getting a bit tense with them anyway. So I said, right, I'm going to take a break from this. I'm going to disappear from here for a while just to like calm down, focus on what's going on with me and try and get over it. By the way, for a bit of context, that was the breathing issue problem that we think was a post-COVID thing, which ended up turning into some kind of like dietary issue, which was really difficult to explain. Like it took months and months and months to figure out exactly what was causing it. So now I've had to like adapt to my diet and stuff to kind of prevent that issue from happening. The issue being the suffocation sensation. So like blood oxygen's completely fine, but just a complete inability to like feel any air in your lungs. It was horrible. It was like suffocating all day. That was like unintentionally hyperventilating as well. And that comes with like a whole host of other symptoms. So while you're sitting there just autopiloting, doing a regular thing, like everything, like your body, everything starts tingling. That tends to happen when you're hyperventilating, but you don't even realize it. It's like there was a really odd sensory problem and it got like super, super stressful. So that's why I had to take a break away from people, because while you're there listening to them complaining at each other, complaining about life, and you're just kind of like suffocating, it's just, boy, I had to leave. But anyway, that was a good turning point because at that time I was doing YouTube, of course, and I was making all these cool new friends, these other creator friends which had very different types of personalities, all of them who had like such cool ambitions, wanted to try new things, wanted to collaborate, wanted to experiment, wanted to share interesting things they liked. Basically more of an internal locus of control than an external locus. And I really appreciate with people who feel like they have the power to change things in their life and the world. Fantastic. And that is, by definition, inspiring. Being surrounded by people who inspire you to try new things every day, rather than people that drain you every day. So I did a thing where I came back from my break and I said to them, hey, like I'm ready to start like engaging more. Just let me know if you want to chill, like, or chat or anything. And I got about 1 or 2 messages from like some of those friend groups. And then I always tried to make sure I was the last one to send the message just to see like whether they would come back to it. And all except for one did not. And then that one I tried to keep in contact with for a bit more, and then that kind of died off. So I was like, right, okay. I know we've spoken for years and years, and now I'm the one that's left the last message. I'm making a comparison here. I'm looking at you, like, is this the kind of people I want to be around? I'm looking at the new friends, the creators. Are these the kind of people I want to be around? And you're at that turning point where it's like, okay, well, when I had a problem, you weren't there to support me that well. And during this problem, these people were not only there to support me, but also inspire me and to keep me going. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is, sometimes the problems relating to your creativity and your drive are not necessarily all internal problems. So keeping in mind all that we've set up until this point in this video, about how sometimes the internal problem is not very obvious and it may be related to some like kind of unresolved baggage that you may be in denial that you have. as most people are when they're told that they have problems. No one wants to believe they're weak enough to have a mental problem, which is a bit of a problem, like it's nothing to be ashamed about. However, sometimes those issues may be given by external factors, which you may not even realize. It may just be part of your routine. So in the case of the example we talked about, if you're surrounding yourself with people that are draining you, like the question you should ask yourself is, when you speak to people, do you come away feeling better or worse than before you started speaking to them? Like, try and forget about everything that happened in between. Like, how do you feel before and after? If you feel better after, if you feel like inspired or happy, or like if you've had a laugh or something like that, that's great. That's a net positive. If you feel worse, if you feel drained, if you feel depressed, if you wanted to do something but then now you don't after speaking to people, like that's a net negative. So kind of just make that judgment on who you're spending your time with. Sometimes that's not obvious for people to realize because speaking to certain people is part of their routine. That's what they've grown up with. They've never really thought about having to think about making that comparison because, oh, that's just how life is. And like, if I feel worse afterwards, that's my problem. No, not necessarily. That's why I think it's very important to find your tribe. I think that's a term some people like using online, because I will say this now, and you know, maybe some people will disagree with points in this video, and that's fine. Like, this is my opinion, but I significantly feel that surrounding yourself with the right people will absolutely change your life. Will change your life direction, will change what you feel like you're capable of doing, will change your access to information, will change so many things. So if you found yourself struggling, hopefully this video might have given you some direction or just some interesting things to think about. Again, remember rule number 1, all things within reason. Like, consider everything for yourself. Don't take things as gospel from anyone in particular. You know, like, take information that's given by people and then kind of look at it as like a tool or a device and just see if you can kind of put it somewhere in your life. Like, is it going to work for you? Is it not? Just because someone says it online, someone that you may admire or appreciate, it doesn't mean it's necessarily true. Take everything with a pinch of salt. If you made it to the end of this video, the emoji is going to be a brain because we've been thinking about psychological things. So if you put that in the comments, I'll be able to see who made it this far. And the reason I like doing that for like all my videos is because though we can see a watch retention statistic on YouTube, when it drops off at the end, it looks like no one reaches the end, which is kind of depressing, even though they do, but it's just the way that the graph is formatted, it kind of makes you feel bad. So it helps me feel better when I see comments to show that people have made it to the end, because it's like very real evidence that people actually have. So again, from like a psychological standpoint, it's a motivational benefit for me, but also it will let me know, depending on the subjects we're talking about, who is finding value in these and who wants to stick around for like that long listening to this subject. And also if there's any other subjects you want me to talk about, then feel free to comment below. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully you found this interesting. Stay safe. Happy blending if you're using Blender, but this video may apply to a lot of other people who aren't using Blender, which is 3D software, just in case you happen to stumble on this and you have no idea what like 3D artwork or software is at all. But otherwise, have a fantastic day, stay safe, and I will see you next time.